The Tempest, Part 3. Night was spreading her black garment upon those valleys, and the tempest was shrieking dizzily, and the rain became stronger. I began to fancy that the biblical flood was coming again to abolish life and wash man's filth from God's earth. It seemed that the revolution of elements had created in Yusuf's heart a tranquility, which often comes as a reaction to temperament and converts aloneness to conviviality. He ignited 2 candles and then placed before me a jar of wine and a large tray containing bread, cheese, olives, honey, and some dry fruits. Then he sat near me, and after apologizing for the small quantity, but not for the simplicity of the food, asked me to join him. We partook of the repast in understanding silence, listening to the wailing of the wind and the crying of the rain, and at the same time I was contemplating his face and trying to dig out his secrets, meditating on the possible motive underlying his unusual existence. Having finished, he took a copper kettle from the fire and poured pure aromatic coffee into 2 cups, and then he opened a small box and offered me a cigarette, addressing me as brother. I took one while drinking my coffee, not believing what my eyes were seeing. He looked at me smilingly, and after he had inhaled deeply of his cigarette and sipped some coffee, he said, "Undoubtedly, you are thinking upon the existence here of wine and tobacco and coffee, and you may also be wondering over my foods and comforts. Your curiosity is justified, in all respects, for you are of many who believe that in being away from people one is absent of life and must abstain from all its enjoyment." Quickly I agreed, "Yes, it is related by all wise men that he who deserts the world for a purpose of worshiping God alone will leave behind all the enjoyment and plenty of life, contenting himself with the simple products of God alone, and existing on plants and water." After a pause, heavy with thought, he mused, "I could have worshipped God while living among his creatures, for worship does not require solitude. I did not leave the people in order to see God, for I had always seen him at the home of my father and mother. I deserted the people because their natures were in conflict with mine, and their dreams did not agree with my dreams. I left man because I found that the wheel of my soul was turning one way and grinding harshly against the wheels of other souls, which were turning in the opposite direction. I left civilization because I found it to be an old and corrupt tree, strong and terrible, whose roots are locked into the obscurity of the earth and whose branches are reaching beyond the cloud. But its blossoms are of greed and evil and crime, and its fruit is of woe and misery and fear. Crusaders have undertaken to blend good into it and change its nature, but they could not succeed. They died disappointed, persecuted, and torn." Yusuf leaned toward the side of the fireplace, as if awaiting the impression of his words upon my heart. I thought it best to remain a listener, and he continued, "No, I did not seek solitude to pray and lead a hermit's life. For prayer, which is the song of the heart, will reach God's ears even when mingled with the shout and cry of thousands of voices. To live the life of a recluse is to torture the body and soul and deaden the inclinations, a kind of existence which is repugnant to me. For God has erected the body as temples for the spirits, and it is our mission to deserve and maintain the trust reposed in us by God. No, my brother, I did not seek solitude for religious purposes, but solely to avoid the people and their laws, their teachings and their traditions, their ideas and their clamor and their wailing. I sought solitude in order to keep from seeing the faces of men who sell themselves and buy with the same price that which is lower than they are, spiritually and materially. I sought solitude in order that I might not encounter the women who walk proudly with 1,000 smiles upon their lips, while in the depths of their thousands hearts there is but one purpose. I sought solitude in order to conceal myself from those self-satisfied individuals who see the specter of knowledge in their dreams and believe that they have attained their goal. I fled from society to avoid those who see but the phantom of truth in their awakening and shout to the world that they have acquired completely the essence of truth. I deserted the world and sought solitude because I became tired of rendering courtesy to those multitudes who believe that humility is a sort of weakness and mercy a kind of cowardice and snobbery a form of strength. I sought solitude because my soul wearied of association with those who believe sincerely that the sun and moon and stars do not rise save from their coffers and do not set except in their gardens. I ran from the office seekers who shatter the earthly fate of the people while throwing into their eyes the golden dust and filling their ears with sounds of meaningless talk. I departed from the ministers who do not live according to their sermons and who demand of the people that which they do not solicit of themselves. I sought solitude because I never obtained kindness from a human unless I paid the full price with my heart. I sought solitude because I loathed that great and terrible institution which the people call civilization, that symmetrical monstrosity erected upon the perpetual misery of humankind. I sought solitude, for in it there is a full life for the spirit and for the heart and for the mind and for the body. I found the endless prairies where there is light of the sun's rests, and where the flowers breathe their fragrance into space, and where the streams sing their way to the sea. I discovered the mountains, where I found the fresh awakening of spring, and the colorful longing of summer, and the rich songs of autumn, and the beautiful mystery of winter. I came to this far corner of God's domain, for I hungered to learn the secrets of the universe, and approach close to the throne of God. Yusuf breathed deeply, as if he had been relieved of a heavy burden. His eyes shone with strange and magical rays, and upon his radiant face appeared the signs of pride, will, and contentment. A few minutes passed, and I was gazing placidly at him, and pondering the unveiling of what had been hidden from me. Then I addressed him, saying, You are undoubtedly correct in most of the things you said, but through your diagnosis of the social ailment, you prove at the same time that you are a good doctor. I believe that the sick society is in dire need of such a physician who should cure it or kill it. This distressed world begs your attention. Is it just or merciful to withdraw yourself from the ailing patient and deny him your benefit? He stared at me thoughtfully, and then he said with futility, Since the beginning of the world, the doctors have been trying to save the people from their disorders. Some used knives, while others used potions, but pestilence spread hopelessly. It is my wish that the patient would content himself with remaining in his filthy bed, meditating his long continued sores. But instead, he stretches his hands from under the robe and clutches at the neck of each who comes to visit him, choking him to death. What irony it is! The evil patient kills the doctor, and then closes his eyes and says within himself, He was a great physician. No, brother. No one on earth can benefit humanity. The sower, however wise and expert he may be, cannot cause the field to sprout in winter. And I agreed. The people's winter will pass away, and then comes the beautiful spring, and the flowers must surely bloom in the fields, and the brooks will again leap in the valleys. He frowned and said abruptly, Alas! Alas, has God divided man's life, which is the whole creation, into seasons, like those of the year? Will any tribe of human beings living now in God's truth and spirit desire to reappear on the face of this earth? Will ever the time come when a man settles and abides at the right arm of life, rejoicing with the brilliant light of day and the peaceful silence of night? Can that dream become reality? Can it materialize after the earth has been covered with human flesh and drenched with man's blood? And Yusuf stood and raised his hand toward the sky, as if pointing at a different world, and he continued, This is not but a vain dream for the world, but I am finding its accomplishment for myself, and what I am discovering here occupies every space in my heart, and in the valleys, and in the mountains. He now raised his intense voice. What I really know to be true is that the crying of my inner self, and I am here living, and in the depths of my existence there is a thirst and a hunger, and I find joy in partaking of the bread and the wine of life from the vases which I make and fashion from my own hands. For this reason I abandoned the boards of the people and came to this place, and I shall remain here until the ending. He continued, walking back and forth across the room in agitation, while I was pondering his sayings and meditating the description of society's gaping wounds. I ventured again a tactful criticism. I hold the utmost regard for your opinion and intentions, and I envy and respect your solitude and aloneness. And I know that this miserable nation has sustained a great loss in your expatriation, for she is in need of an understanding healer to help her through her difficulties and awaken her spirit. He shook his head slowly and said, This nation is like all the nations, and the people are made of the same element and do not vary except in their exterior appearance, which is of no consequence. The misery of our Oriental nations is the misery of the world, and what you call civilization in the West is not but another specter of many phantoms of tragic deception. Hypocrisy will remain, even if her fingertips are colored and polished, and deceit will never change, even if her touch becomes soft and delicate, and falsehood will never turn into truth, even if you dress her with silken robes and place her in the palace, and greed will not become contentment, nor will crime become virtue, and eternal slavery, no teachings, no customs, and no history will remain slavery, even if she paints her face and disguises her voice. Slavery will remain slavery in all her horrible form, even if she calls herself liberty. No, my brother, the West is not higher than the East, nor is the West lower than the East, and the difference that stands between the two is not greater than the difference between the tiger and the lion. There is just and perfect law that I have found behind the exterior of society, which equalizes misery, prosperity, and ignorance. It does not prefer one nation to another, nor does it oppress one tribe in order to enrich another. I exclaimed then, civilization is vanity, and all in it is vanity. He quickly responded, Yes, civilization is vanity, and all in it is vanity. Inventions and discoveries are but amusement and comfort for the body when it is tired and weary. The conquest of distance and the victory over the seas are but false fruit which do not satisfy the soul nor nourish the heart, neither lift the spirit, for they are afar from nature. And those structures and theories which man calls knowledge and art are naught except shackles and golden chains which man drags, and he rejoices with their glittering reflections and ringing sounds. They are strong cages whose bars men commenced fabricating ages ago, unaware that he was building from the inside and that he would soon become his own prisoner to eternity. Yes, vain are the deeds of man, and vain are his purposes, and all is vanity upon the earth. He paused and then slowly added, and among all vanities of life, there is only one thing that the spirit loves and craves, one thing dazzling and alone. What is it? I inquired, with a quivering voice. He looked at me for a long minute and then closed his eyes and placed his hands on his chest, while his face brightened, and with a serene and sincere voice he said, "It is an awakening in the spirit. It is an awakening in the inner depths of the heart. It is an overwhelming and magnificent power that descends suddenly upon man's conscience and opens his eyes, whereupon he sees life amid a dizzying shower of brilliant music, surrounded by a circle of great light, with man standing as a pillar of beauty between the earth and the firmament. It is a flame that suddenly rages within the spirit and sears and purifies the heart, ascending above the earth and hovering in the spacious sky. It is a kindness that envelops the individual's heart, whereby he would bewilder and disprove all who opposed it, and revolt against those who refuse to understand its great meaning. It is a secret which removed the veil from my eyes while I was a member of society amidst my family, my friends, and my countrymen. Many times I wondered and spoke to myself, saying, "What is this universe? And why am I different from those people who are looking at me? And how do I know them? And where did I meet them? And why am I living among them? Am I a stranger among them? Or is it they who are strange to this earth, built by life, who entrusted me with the keys?" He suddenly became silent, as if remembering something he had seen long before, refusing to reveal it. Then he stretched his arms forward and whispered, "That is what happened to me 4 years ago when I left the world and came to this void place to live in the awakeness of life and enjoy kind thoughts and beautiful silence." He walked toward the door, looking at the depths of the darkness as if preparing to address the tempest. But he spoke in a vibrating voice, saying, "It is an awakening within the spirit. He who knows it is unable to reveal it by words, and he who knows it not will never think upon the compelling and beautiful mystery of existence."